While on social media, have you ever called someone a racist? Used terms such as libtard, moron, rape apologist, liar, commie, sexist, or zealot? Do you describe people as ignorant, naive, or ideological? Do you accuse people of wanting to sin? Do you accuse them of failing to recognize their privilege? Do you insult people or castigate people? Let me say up front that I have been guilty of castigating people and name-calling. Not often. I genuinely try not to behave that way, and I take pride in being good at remaining civil. But I have, on a few occasions, allowed my emotions to come to the fore. I am not proud of those episodes. Anyone engaged in name-calling is not engaged in civil discussion. That seems obvious to me, but recently I have come to recognize that calling someone a name, even silently to oneself, is not engaging in civil debate. When we internally label someone as a bigot or partisan hack, we are distracting ourselves from the topic under discussion. If you're thinking about what an ignorant fool Joe is, you're thinking about Joe, not about the chain of thought that Joe is trying to communicate. This is bound to hinder one's own clarity of thought, and it will likely intrude in subtle ways into the conversation. But isn't it okay to be passionate about a topic? I mean, there really are such things as racism and sexism. Of all the topics worth being passionate about, surely the defense of social justice is high on the list. People who advocate for social justice, and more specifically, those among them who call out other people as racist, sexist, homophobes, or apply any derogatory labels, are not claiming that facts don't matter. They are claiming to the contrary that one of the facts that matters is the fact that America contains so many bigots and hateful people who are interfering in one way or another with the quality of life attainable by their fellow Americans. I more or less agree with this indictment of American society, yet I still reject the claim that name-calling should be socially acceptable. Certainly, everyone has a free speech right to rant and insult people, but anyone who exercises that right shouldn't be surprised if the conversation falters or collapses or ceases to be productive. If you're really passionate about a topic, and if you are confident that the facts are on your side, why would you resort to name-calling, knowing that doing so only reduces your prospects of being persuasive? Well, I can tell you why people resort to name-calling. There are two reasons. First, they simply lost emotional control of themselves. I don't know the solution to this, but I would suggest that the best way to gain emotional self-control is to concentrate on intellectual self-control. Once you discipline your mind to think clearly about the consequences of your behavior, you will likely find it easier to tamp down those destructive emotions. The moment you feel that first twinge of indignation or outrage welling up from within you, pause and acknowledge how disruptive that emotion is on your ability to respond calmly and in a measured tone. To be civil in your reply requires first that you be civil in your frame of mind. The second reason that people engage in name-calling is that they wish to strike out against people whom they view as culpable in some way. The goal is not to persuade, but to dissuade. Name-calling is a way to intimidate, shame, or punish people. We humans are social animals, and it is painful to be shamed by our peers. Shaming others can also be a way to signal one's own virtue. But don't the homophobes and other malicious people in our society deserve to be shamed? If we remain cool and calm when confronted by bigotry, and if we engage the bigots in polite conversation, aren't we legitimizing their hatred and ignorance? I would assume that anyone who poses such questions believes that reason is on their own side. They are confident that they have access to the facts, logic, and moral insights necessary to defend against the malicious people, the bad guys. So the question is not about the merit of the bad guy's position. That's a foregone conclusion. The question concerns the personal value of those people. The bad guys, as individual persons, are deemed unworthy of civility. As we often hear, respect must be earned. The only reason to interact with those bad people, according to this view, is to publicly humiliate them and therefore make an example of them as a warning to anyone else who might dare to express similarly unpalatable opinions. Is it not immediately obvious what kind of society this attitude fosters? A society regimented by fear and outrage, where civility is regarded as something bequeathed upon those in favor, as opposed to being a virtue in its own right. I need to be careful in how I express myself, lest I be accused of trying to shame the shamers. I am not wanting to shame anyone. My point is simply this. Name-calling and other forms of shaming, such as questioning your interlocutor's motives, might prove successful in the short run, but it is a cheap and tenuous victory, if any victory at all. To the extent that we feel good about shaming others and about resorting to name-calling, we are expressing our own lack of virtue. And that is no less true regardless of whether the facts are on our side or what scoundrels our adversaries may be. If you cannot control your emotions, if you feel an irrepressible urge to name-call and insult, you are unequipped for civil discussion. Your highest and best contribution to civil public discussion is to simply choose not to interrupt it.